2 trends in the papers. Fuhad, good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, 𝗪𝗂 Babalola. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. How are you doing yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Just a bit disturbed from my darling state, Lagos.
Yeah, I know. Well, Fuhad, you've been shading other people's states now, like Sandra State. But since last week, you've been shading her
just genuinely concerned for them. But
right.
Now, I'm worried, really, seriously worried for my darling state, Lagos. I listened to my speaker, the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly yesterday, while he was addressing the reason for, dropping 17 commissioner nominees of the governor.
Yeah.
I felt a serious pity for my darling state. While listening to the speaker, 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗪 𝗪𝗶𝗂, I kept remembering the speakership of the very gentleman, Dr. 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗪 when he was Speaker of the State Assembly. The finesse, the fact that came to speakership at that time of the Lagos State House of Assembly. And all of that was completely missing yesterday. In way the speaker presented himself, his address about the issues, his choice of words.
The paper carries the story. Yeah, the paper carries the story, so we're going to address that.
So let's just wait to talk about it when we get there.
Yes,
but
yes.
It's a pity, really, but we'll get there.
Yes. Well, the Punch, Guardian, New Telegraph, and the Nation newspaper, those are the papers we would be reviewing this morning. Let's open conversations by reviewing the top stories on the front pages of the Punch newspaper. Major story here, FEC unfolds 3-year economic revival plan. Tinubu warns ministers. Riders to the story, ministers to achieve first phase of Tinubu's 8-point agenda within 3 years. Other riders, Tinubu inherited bad economy, youth unemployment unacceptable, says minister. And now to the story in itself, we do have here the Federal Executive Council on Monday unfolded a 3-year economic revival plan to address the social and economic challenges affecting the country. Addressing the ministers, the president admonished them to achieve the first phase of his administration's 8-point agenda within 3 years. He asked the members of his cabinet to work hard to revive the country's economy because Nigeria is in a difficult time. Anyways, to summarize the whole context of this particular text and the conversations or statements being put out by the president, he's expecting that the ministers, the newly appointed ministers, are able to help at least the first phase of his 8-point agenda should be achieved within 3 years. And their primary focus when it comes to reviving the economy would be human capital development. They're going to create 50 million jobs. That's the plan. And also the ministers will be placed under very stringent observation. And he says not to pay attention to, cynics who are very pessimistic about how achievable his plans are for the future. So, Fuhad, based on the summary that I have given you, would you say that you are amongst the optimists who believe that in 3 years he would be able to achieve the first phase of his 8-point agenda?
𝗪𝗂, we've had several agendas in the past, several targets of government, creation of jobs. We are going to create 10 million jobs, 20 million jobs. We are used to figures. And this is not the first time we're hearing a government giving itself or its cabinet members targets to meet up with. And at those times when those targets were given and they were not met, there were no consequences. Nothing happened. Now, from this story, there are 3 takeaways for me, 𝗪𝗂. The first is that now the government can settle in and do the business of governance.
Yeah.
The FEC meeting was held yesterday. That's the first one. Chaired by the president himself, and I think he was clear about what he wanted them to achieve, that is cabinet ministers. He talked about creation of job, human capital development, and then he also mentioned the fact that look, he was going to be micromanaging them and will be assessing them based on performance. So I think it's a good one that eventually we have the FEC holding its first meeting. The government can now settle in and do their job. Now, the second one is that, look, there was an indictment of the last administration. If the government is now saying that, look, they inherited a battered economy, high rate of unemployment. So think that's a big indictment of the last administration. Incidentally, that's 8 years of the 𝗵𝗃, and we're still talking about an 𝗵𝗃 government. Because I'm sure it will be difficult for this government now to mention 60 years of the PDP. The 𝗵𝗃 took over in 8 years. The result of what happened in the last 8 years is what I'm sure they are talking about. Maybe a carryover effect of 60 years, but majorly, what had happened in 8 years? 8 years was enough to have corrected whatever wrong that happened in 60 years of the PDP. So, the statements about unemployment, about the battered economy and all of that, insecurity, is a referendum of some sort, or an indictment of the last administration as led by President Muhammadu Buhari, and of course the 𝗵𝗃. And then the last one is the issue of targets and all of that. We'll wait to see. It's early days. I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt to run this government. Let's see what they're going to be able to bring to the table in terms of what governance is about. I think we should not go too hard on this government. It's early days. The ministers are just settling in. We've been seeing some bright spots. I must say that beyond the rhetoric, I think his understanding of issues, the way he wants to run the Ministry of Work is a bit of a delight to me. I'm talking of the former governor of the state, 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗧. I seem to like his passion for the job. I like the kind of conversation he's coming up with and the kind of targets he wants to set for contractors in terms of road construction and all of that in the country. So I think overall we should just calm down. Let's give them some breathing space. Let's see what they do, and then we'll begin to talk about it.
All right, thank you very much, Fuhad. Page 2 of the Punch newspaper, you will get details of this particular story. Now, let's talk about the flood. Cameroon dam flood to hit state in 7 days, says the federal government. We do have the story here. The federal government on Monday said all the frontline states on the path of River Benue may experience flooding within the next 7 days as a result of the opening of Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. Now, let me quote something that was said. I'm trying to get the name. Dr. Betta Edu, yes, that is the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. She says, and I quote, "As earlier stated, the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon was opened recently and we will see the effects in the coming days. Flood has been a major issue in Nigeria and has been causing loss of lives and property. We have been given a task by Mr. President to ensure proper preparedness against the effect of the opening of the Lagdo Dam." So the warnings have been coming since months ago, especially after the scenario that we saw in 2022 that left a lot of people homeless, a lot of businesses lost, and even a majority when it comes to loss of lives, especially loss of lives in states that are in the path of the Benue River. So, Fuhad, I can understand taking proactive measures to make sure we minimize casualty rate, but is there really nothing we can do to collect the water the proper way? Because when I was reading the arrangement between Cameroon and Nigeria regarding the opening of the dam, we were also supposed to build a dam here in Nigeria to collect the water, and we've not been able to do that in over 40 years. So I can appreciate the fact that they're evacuating people, creating camps, but what would you say about the fact that maybe it's time we spent more energy building a dam that can collect the water? Or what is your perspective?
Well, that would be a long-term solution. That cannot happen now in 7 days.
Right.
Because from this report, in 7 days, most of the communities along the Benue River, across about 6 or 7 states in the country, would experience serious flooding, just the way it happened last year. And like you said, the warning started from as far as back as last year, when the last flooding incident happened. If you remember, a lot of experts had warned that the same thing was going to repeat itself, if not worse, this year, and that we should start to plan immediately. But now, from the reports we are getting from the different states, it's obvious that, after the last incident, we went to sleep as usual. We are not very proactive, we are very reactive, and so all we need to do now is to react to this piece of information. The dam has been opened already.
Yes.
When the dam is open, it's not that it's open completely. It's just a gradual release of water from the dam, so that it doesn't collapse. The rainwaters have filled up the dam, so they need to release water so that because the dam has a capacity to contain a number of the volume of water that it can contain. So, and they need to release the water. Now, what we need to ask ourselves is this. Apart from 𝗪𝗵𝗂, which is the federal government body to respond to emergencies like this, I'm sure the Minister of Humanitarian and all of that will also come into play this time. What will be the responses of the state through their state emergency management authority? The reality is that I'm sure a lot of these states don't even have a proper response unit. Because, responding to issues like this would involve about 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
The first one would be for proper sensitization. Do we have the machinery to really sensitize the people on the dangers of this flooding? The second one would be evacuation. Do we have enough evacuation centers to move these people to higher ground for the meantime until the water recedes? The third one would be, to cater to their needs, food, blankets, medical needs too. Do we have medical experts who understand how these things are handled? Responses to issues of cholera, diarrhea. What about the aged population, the old people in those communities? Yeah. The way you respond to younger ones will not be the way you respond to evacuations of the old. Where you keep them? How do you keep them warm? What about their meals? Who's going to prepare it? You have work that requires planning. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to properly handle this that is coming. But we'll see what would happen now that the minister is talking about it. 𝗪𝗵𝗂 is talking about it. Some of the state governors are already talking about it. But I have my fears that would respond to this in a very shoddy way. People will lose their properties. God forbid, maybe 1 or 2 people may lose their lives too. But I think going forward, we now need to talk about how to be proactive about this, because it's going to continue to happen until a permanent solution is found to this problem, which is to build a counter dam on the Nigerian side to collect this water. Like one of our callers said yesterday, availability of water is not supposed to be a problem if well managed. Apart from hydroelectric that can come from building a dam in Nigeria on the other side of this Lagdo Dam, we can also look at channeling this water for irrigation so that the water is available to our farmers all through the year. Right. So it's about investment, it's about good thinking and being proactive, and that's what we now have to continue to talk about. But in 7 days, I think this would happen. We'll wait to see what the response of government will be. But we will have to beg them, take the time for the governors to roll up their sleeves, deploy funds, and save the people, their properties, their lives.
Thank you, Fuhad. Page 17 of the Punch newspaper. I'm still on page 17. We have another headline here. NBS kicks as ex-statistician general faults new employment data. Now, the former Statistician General of the Federation, Chief Executive Officer of the National Bureau of Statistics, Dr. 𝗵𝗵𝗁, has said he resisted the urge to further change the country's unemployment data gathering methodology during his time as head of the statistics body. He spoke barely a week after the NBS released a new data that put employment at 4.1%. The agency had put unemployment at 33% in the fourth quarter of 2020. He has noted that the committee in charge of reviewing the minimum work hours to count as employed felt 1 hour did not make sense because income generated within that time frame was not necessarily livable. So, Fuhad, the former Statistician General is not very comfortable with the latest report of the NBS. As you know, they placed unemployment rate at 4.1%. We can understand the resistance because in the fourth quarter of 2022 we had 33%. So he believes that the methodology that was used to compile this particular report, they considered people who work for an hour as employed. So if you're able to work for an hour, you are employed. Now his argument is that 20 hours of work here in Nigeria is what equates to 1 hour of work in other countries like the United States. So he doesn't think it's reasonable to consider a person who works 1 hour in Nigeria as employed. But NBS has reacted, and they're saying that there are lots of people who work, and in under 1 hour, they can earn the salary of somebody who works an entire month. And so the data has to capture them. So, why do you do this? Why do you always do this?
No, the NBS needs to give us an example of people who work 1 hour. and are able to make,
they mentioned lecturers. They mentioned lecturers. They gave an example. They said
so lecturers work 1 hour and get what?
Fuad, let me quote them, so it's not like it is something that was from my mouth. He says, the world is changing in high-tech countries. If you work for 1 hour, you can earn what somebody in a bank cannot earn in 1 year because of IT. Look at lecturers. A lecturer can go for lecture for 1 to 2 hours, and they will pay him 200,000 to 300,000 in that 1 or 2 hours.
In which school?
It did not put it there. That's just what he said. And that was a quote. That was me reading verbatim, by the way. That was not a personal opinion.
We need to investigate this MBS guy. We need to investigate this MBS guy. This current MBS guy. And when I say we need to investigate them, I think we need to investigate them, how they wake up, where they used to be going to work, when they close from work, where do they go to. I think because, you see, Sage, on a very serious note, what do you do with data? Unemployment data, because again, Sage, even the ILO that talks about a global standard for measuring unemployment also talks about local peculiarity.
Yeah.
The fact is that, look, yes, there are global standards.
But there are country-specific problems.
God bless you. See, there are country-specific problems that should determine the way you measure your own unemployment rate.
Yeah.
And it is clear in the ILO charter as to how to measure unemployment. The idea of having, 1 hour and all of that. The reality is that, look, in other countries, say, yes, it could be possible to have lecturers who work 1 hour and earn that kind of pay. It is possible, depending on the kind of job they do, where they lecture, and the field. You understand? Maybe as a researcher or something.
Yeah.
But what in Nigeria, say, our peculiarities are completely different. The danger is this. Unemployment rates are supposed to help the government to plan. That's what you do with data. You are supposed to use it as a planning index to plan yourself, react. When you break down the data, it tells you where the problem is. How many employed people do you have in the country? The underemployed, the unemployed. How many people do you have unemployed in the informal sector? What of the formal sector? So it guides the government in response and planning. Say, the international standard is low. If your unemployment level is below 5%, it's as good as there is zero unemployment in your country. So really don't have to worry. Even in the United States, it becomes a problem for a president when unemployment figures hit 5% and above. Anything below 5% is seen as success and a good performance on the part of the president as far as unemployment is concerned. So if the MBS is telling us now that because of the so-called global standard, without taking, to reckon in our own local peculiarity, that our unemployment figure has dropped from 33% because of this new standard to 4.1%. What they are telling the government, unfortunately, is that we don't have any problem with unemployment and that the government needs not to do anything different. That's the danger with a warped, unintelligent argument that the NBS is coming up with. The danger is that you are simply telling the government at all levels that, look, as far as unemployment is concerned in Nigeria, we have no problem. And that's why the former statistician general is saying that, look, you have to be careful to come up with these ridiculous arguments. And it's not just the only one saying it. A lot of professors, a lot of technocrats, a lot of people who should know have said that the NBS should not scandalize or trivialize something as important as unemployment index in the country. Because it is about planning. Okay, so what has happened now? Because people are working for 1 hour. Say, I can tell you, people who work for 1 hour in Nigeria are people who do menial jobs.
Yes.
And I must tell you that whatever they earn cannot even feed them for a day, on a normal day. And then you look at the example of lecturers.
Yeah.
Which lecturers in Nigeria now work for 1 or 2 hours and get 200,000 per day? I want to know in that.
Maybe private universities, maybe.
Even in private universities. How much is the average? What's even the average salary of a professor?
Right.
In our university, private and public.
150 to 200, I think.
So what the hell? So anyways, I think it's just a complete joke. I think we should disregard it. I think whatever data they are coming should be trashed completely. It should all be thrown to where it belongs, which is the trash bin. We know what our unemployment problems are in the country. Say, we need to act appropriately, do the needful. We are not even producing. Our factories are folding up. Businesses are crumbling. And then you drop your unemployment figures because of so-called global standards that you are not taking care of your own So say, let's just, I don't want to get worked up. Like I said, I listened to the Speaker of Lagos State yesterday and had a very worried, troubled time listening to him, and I still have an hangover of that, waking up this morning. So I think the FBS should just leave us. Like one of our callers said yesterday, maybe we should just put the unemployment rate at 0%. We don't have any problem. Everybody is employed, gainfully employed.
I'm on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. If you're just joining us, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Sage Babalola. You're hearing Fuhad analyzing the headlines that I have been reeling out from the front page of the Punch newspaper. All right, still on page 17, we do have another headline here. Extractive firms underpaid $10 billion in taxes, royalties, says 𝗫𝗫. Now, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative on Monday told members of the House of Representatives that part of its findings in the extractive industry showed that some companies operating in the sectors underpaid over $10 billion in taxes and royalties to the federal government. 𝗫𝗫 disclosed this in a presentation to lawmakers that detailed some of the impact of the agency in the oil, gas, and solid mineral sector in Nigeria. The presentation was delivered by the Deputy Director, Head Communications and Stakeholders Management 𝗫𝗫 Obiageli Onuora at the agency's headquarters in Abuja. And they have vowed, this comes as the House of Representatives have vowed to push for privatization of Nigeria's refinery in order to make them more efficient and beneficial to Nigerians. Anyways, the point of this particular headline is that we have individuals operating in the extractive sector shortchanging the government, and the sum total of how much shortchange has been done to the government is about $10 billion. So those in oil and gas, those who are extracting mineral resources among others, have not been paying their taxes, they've not been paying their royalties, and they're trying to make adjustment, especially now that we are in an era with a fiscal policy that relies heavily on taxation. So maybe focus on those who are owing the government large chunks of money than individual citizens who can barely, survive.
Yeah, I think you said it all. This is a government that's after, that has a very huge revenue drive. They want money. They're looking for money everywhere. So this is one area they need to look into. Who are these guys who are shortchanging the government? Who are to cover your money? And make sure that they pay what they are supposed to pay going forward. Whatever they've not paid in the past, we can recover it if we have the information and the details. Because we need the money. And going forward, also put up a framework, a process that ensures that they pay what they are supposed to pay. So that's left for the government to sort out.
Right.
The good information that they can work with, since they are looking for money. So this is one money they can go after and recover, and then forward, ensure the proper thing is done.
Right. They're also working, towards the tax waivers that are being granted to certain individuals in the country as well. That the tax waivers are too much because at the end of the day, the product that is being put forward by these individuals is not even beneficial to the country. So why do you enjoy tax holiday, tax waivers when you're not doing anything for the country? They're also trying to review that as well. Anyways, like I said, page 17 of the Punch newspaper.
There's a tax reforms committee.
Yeah.
Already inaugurated by the president, and I'm sure that's one of the things they'll be looking into. We've talked about widening the tax net, not reintroducing new taxes.
Yeah.
So in widening the tax net, of course, I'm sure this is one of the things they will look into too. Who are these guys getting these tax waivers? What are the justifications for some of these tax waivers and all of that? So one would think that as part of the tax reforms of the government, all of this will be addressed going forward. So we'll wait to see what happens.
All right, then that was on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. Now we're going to go back to page 7. This headline reads, Abiodun diverted Ogun local government allocations. 10.8 billion naira bailout, council boss alleges. We're talking about Ogun State. Fuhad, I want you to calm down, first of all. So let me read the report. Let me read the report. Okay. So the chairman of Ijebu East local government area of Ogun State, Wale Adedayo, has accused Governor Dapo Abiodun of diverting the statutory federal allocation due to the state's local government in the last 2 years. In a letter written to former Governor Chief 𝗪𝗪𝗂𝗪 𝗪𝗏 on Sunday and obtained by correspondence, he alleged that 10.8 billion fund of the Subsidy Reinvestment and Empowerment Program was also diverted by the governor. According to him, the trend of denying local governments their due federal allocation in the state began during the administration of former Governor Senator 𝗵𝗃 𝗪𝗏. He has also said, and I quote now, "Former President Muhammadu Buhari assisted state and local governments with what we call palliatives today. They called it 𝗧𝗵𝗃. The first sent to the 20 local governments in Ogun State was 2.5 billion, the second 2.6, the third 2.8 billion, and the fourth shortly before Buhari left 2.9 million. He claims not a dime of these funds was released to any local government in Ogun State. He says also the ecological funds were not given to the local government. I have become a laughing stock in my local government area." Fuhad, we've been asking the questions, what do local government chairmen do? What role do they play in, reviving the economies that they've been asked to handle? Well, this person is telling us now, this council boss is telling us, Wale Adedayo, that the state government do not give them a dime to do anything, and is accusing the governor of diverting funds.
See, incidentally on Sunday on Political Roundtable, that was one of our focus. How the governors, the 36 states of the Federation, are stifling local governments in the country. If you remember, the former president, the immediate past president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and this is his words, his choice, the way he said, the governors are stealing the monies of the local government. That was what he said. Remember that he signed an executive order trying to ensure that allocations of local government go directly
to the local government. I mean, I'm sorry, you remember we also heard that the governors are the ones that are preventing the local government autonomy conversation. The governors are disagreeing.
No, they're the ones. Even when it was attempted at the House of Reps, to raise bills, I think he passed the first reading, and the second reading, the governors came in through their representatives and shut it down. They also went to court to challenge the executive order of the president, and they won. And the problem is this joint account of state government and the local government, because the money first goes into the account of the state before it goes to the local government. Stage, whatever is being said about what is happening in Ogun State, we'll still consider it an allegation. Let's just say those are allegations. But we know the reality. Stage, and it's unfortunate that in this country, we pay too much attention to the federal level. So everybody talks about the president. We talk about the ministers. But in reality, the people holding the country down, the main people holding the country down from progressing are the governors of the different states. Look, some people will tell you that it is even better to become apart from the optics, the name, the status, and the power. In terms of governance and the largesse that comes with it, it is better to become a governor than a president. Because nobody looks at you, nobody talks about you. There are a lot of governors in the country who are just there occupying space. The local government is criminal, is fraudulent, and it is a real to the state. And it was good to have said that, look, all of these things started from the former governor, 𝗵𝗃 𝗪𝗏, now to 𝗪𝗏 𝗪𝗏. And look, this is just one bold person who is not coming out to talk. Like I said, it is still an allegation. But the reality is that we know how this thing goes. And it's not just in Ogun State. It is not just in Ogun State. You have, in the church of my faculties on Sunday, they said, look, you have 36 governors holding the country down, doing nothing practically. Okay, one of the things we said on Sunday, remove federal roads from Nigeria. Just remove the roads that are controlled by the federal government from the roads in Nigeria. What are the state government been doing? Where are the state roads that have been constructed? Let us just start with that conversation. And so what you see is that some of these governors, in order to continue to pilfer the state and steal the state dry, go into white elephant projects. These are the same governors who are happy to build airports in states where there are no roads, no rural roads, nothing is happening. In their state, a lot of the state hospitals are non-functional. Primary health care centers don't have any facility. There are no state roads or rural roads constructed by them, and they are eager to go and construct airports. They go and borrowing. They run down their state after stealing the funds of the local government. most of the states are still in debt as a result of these fraudulent activities of these governors. But we don't talk about them. We don't even look at them. The president is always the problem. I agree that at federal level we have our concerns. But look at the way we stifle local government operations. Say, are you also aware that most of these governors deliberately don't conduct local government elections? Are you aware? In Edo State now, 𝗪𝗶𝘁𝗃 has suddenly realized that he now wants to conduct local government elections because the election is coming next year. And he's not the only one. Most of the state governors don't even conduct local government elections. What they just do is to appoint administrators, their own leads. And so whatever they give to those ones, they can't even complain. And again, we need to also revisit this idea of state independent electoral commission conducting local government elections. Because what now happens is that, look, because it is easy to manipulate the state independent electoral commission, you have them just appointing people, putting people. They can't even challenge the governor. They can't challenge the governor. So we have emperors governing our 36 states, stealing the resources of the people. This were the words of the former president. It's not just my own word. President Muhammadu Buhari said, he said, the governors are stealing the monies of the local government. And that is the fact. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Page 7 of the Punch newspaper. We're going to round off with this headline for Punch newspaper. Of course, NLC FMBN clash over 238 billion naira National Housing Fund. The report reads, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria has disagreed over the management of the Contributory National Housing Fund. The NHF is an offshoot of NHS Act of 1992. NHF, I beg your pardon, which mandates all employers, yes, in both the private and public sectors to make monthly remittances. Now, the disagreement between the Labour Union and the nation's apex mortgage institution have stemmed from recent threats by the Labour Union that it would pull out of the contributory funds owing to the dissatisfaction regarding how the fund was being managed. For the sake of our time, basically, the Labour Union are uncomfortable with the provisions being made by the mortgage bank when it comes to housing. They're saying the houses made available is not necessarily commensurate with the contributions that they're making. So they pay a certain amount of money hoping to have houses, affordable houses, but then majority of the requests to have these houses have been unmet. And that is the issue that the Labour Union has with the Apex Mortgage Bank at this time. Of course, the bank has defended themselves that it's too many people applying and they cannot tend to everybody, but they can say majority enjoy it. So what do you think, Fuad?
They should scrap that bank.
Why?
They should scrap. They should. I will tell you. Again, you know, this is somewhere I'm very familiar with. This is a sector I'm very familiar with. You see, this is another fraud going on, and it's so annoying because what you are doing is we are robbing Peter to pay Paul. By the NHF Act that established it, all government, federal government workers are supposed to be. I think a particular percentage, about 2.5% of their salaries, are deducted every month as contributions to the NHF, National Housing Fund. And those monies are domiciled with the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Now, what is the money supposed to do? It's also supposed to help contributors finance acquisition of houses. So it means you can borrow. Since you are a contributor, you can borrow. I think the minimum you can borrow is 5 million naira. You can borrow up to 5 million. I think the maximum is 15 million naira that you can borrow as a contributor, and then you're allowed to pay over a period of time and all of that. The reality is this: these are monies that are deducted every day. I think from the NLC, they are even saying that most of the private sector contributors are withdrawn because a lot of people can't even access the fund. See, a lot of contributors cannot even access, and I agree with the Labour that instead of collecting this money and diverting it, because what has now happened from investigation is that, look, some of these monies are now routed to some private developers who build luxury buildings for people. Because the money is not just lying fallow there. The FMBN can never tell me that money is just there, doing nothing. The reality is that, look, the FMBN itself knows that a lot of the contributors to that fund cannot access the fund, and even when they access the fund, where are the houses to buy? Where exactly are the houses to buy? So they are happy to continue to collect these contributions from these workers, knowing that, look, the fact that there's no houses to buy at that price, and that, look, if you look at the rigorous process that is put into how to access the funds, say, you just get tired. What you have to do, what you have to sign, how you have to go about it, you have to take years, and the board, they said the board sits every 2 times in a year, and then until the board sits, approvals are not given. But sometimes 100 people apply, only 2 people get. It's a complete waste of time. And I agree with the Labour Congress that, look, if the fund is not helping ordinary workers own houses, can you just leave them with their money? Stop the deduction. Rather than allowing a few people benefit from the sweat of other people. What is happening as far as the NHF and the FNBN is concerned is a complete fraud. And I agree that it should be sacked. Because it is not meeting the desired result. How many government workers that are contributors have been able to own a house through NHF? Let's start with that conversation. The FNBN should give us the data of government workers who are contributors to that fund, who have been able to own a house through that fund. Then we'll be able to judge the success rate. I think it should be scrapped and allow the workers go home. They are not doing anything in that place.
Page 7 of the Punch newspaper, you get more information. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM. So please go onto our social media pages and you can definitely participate via those platforms. Again, Mainland 98.3 FM is how you will find us on Facebook and YouTube. And be reminded that we are streaming on those platforms. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. Sage Babalola is my name. I'm here conversing with Fuhad Saheed. We're done with the Punch newspaper and now we're about to move to the Guardian newspaper. The top story we have here: unwielded appointment of SSAs, SAs, PAs deplete lean resources in poor states. Riders to this story: Yobe, Niger, Kano top list. Governors create portfolios on women affairs, mobilization, divorcees. Osun Commissioner Jenyo appoints 20 SAs and PAs. Now, amid calls to reduce the cost of governance and curb borrowing to pay salaries, several state governors are still in the business of appointing a large retinue of aides, some of which are actually frivolous. There's a list of state debt here. There's also a list of states and how many special assistants they have appointed so far. Because for our time, I'll just give us a few. Governor Francis Nwifuru of Ebonyi State so far has appointed 41 special assistants. Governor Alex Oti has appointed 52 special advisors. Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State has appointed 22 special advisors. In fact, the commissioner on Osun State, Bumi Jenyo, have appointed 20 special.
That's one commissioner.
Yes, 20 special and personal assistants to work with him. In fact, besides the special assistants, pundits have described ridiculous portfolios created by governors, including special assistant to divorcees, special advisor on graveyard matters, minister of happiness, and special assistant on street lights, among others. I rest my case, Fuad. Over to you.
No, wait now. We cannot run away from it. I want to ask. The guy on graveyard matters, what would he be doing?
So that spirits don't wander into the states.
So he will guide the spirit. Go back to where you are going.
Yes.
Is that what you'll be doing?
Yes.
Is he Sage? Yeah? Oh my goodness.
Headbuster.
What of the divorcees? Special assistant or divorcees?
Maybe they will link them up with other people or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
So why look for husband for them?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. So I just hope that, in this our democratic experiment, I think we need to appeal to our politicians at all levels. And I'm saying it with all sense of seriousness, Sage. I'm not joking now. I think we need to appeal to them. These guys some of them are well traveled, well exposed. And they must understand that, look, Nigerians are yearning. At least what Nigerians are demanding for is not too much, you see. They just want, they just want to live a normal life, a good life. This experiment, this democratic experiment started from 1999 and up till now. If you ask the ordinary people out there, they keep wondering, what has democracy now given to us? What has it brought to us? Where are the dividends of democracy? Have we gotten anything at all from this democratic experiment? And, it's getting to a point Nigerians are now beginning to question whether indeed democracy has given us anything. And I'm scared for me, see. We need to tell these guys, as they live large on the resources of the people, as they gallivant up and down, as they continue to rub it on the faces of the people, that they don't really care. That they know that people are gradually getting frustrated and are being pushed to the wall. And the consequences may be very, very bad for the country. You know, like they always say, when you push people to the wall, it gets to a point they turn back at you and fight back. We are hoping that our politicians, for example, we have learned a lot of lessons from the _EndSARS protest, which was a micro example of what can happen when civil disobedience starts in a country as a result of the frustration of the people with people in government. We are hoping that they learn that lesson and know that Nigerians are gradually getting frustrated, gradually getting disoriented, and may one day push back and fight back. And the consequences will be very, very bad. We are hoping that they learn that lesson. And I'll just say that I'll leave it at that.
Right. Fuad, now let's talk about what happened in the Lagos State Assembly. Now, Lagos Assembly insists on rejection of nominees. Riders to this story, or rider to this story, House reserves right to expose reports on rejected nominees, says Speaker. Now, the Lagos State House of Assembly has insisted on its decision not to confirm some of the commissioner nominees sent by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu for screening. The Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, who presided over the plenary during resumption of sitting yesterday, said the lawmakers had concluded there is no going back on the rejected nominees. He says he's warning those planning protest and sponsoring media articles to desist. He says that if you want to know the reason why they were not confirmed, they should approach the House. However, they will not be forced to spill their observation. That is what he says regarding reasons as to why you rejected 17 of the 39 names that were submitted for considerations. Fuad.
Well, like I said, I listened to the speaker yesterday. If not because of time, I think we would have played the sound bite so that people can listen for themselves. I assume that a lot of our listeners also listened to him when he was making that statement. I saw a very arrogant man who feels he's not accountable to the people. On several occasions in his statement, he kept talking about the fact that he's loyal to his party members and the party 𝗵𝗃. And in the statement, you saw him contradicting himself severally. Like I said, there was no finesse. You know, this is Lagos State. This is not Ogun State. Oh, sorry, this is Lagos State. Let me leave it at that. And we expect that, you know, the personality of the Speaker of the State Assembly in Lagos to show some level of decorum, finesse, intelligent thinking, composure. All of that was completely missing in what he was saying yesterday. His choice of words were completely derogatory. You saw a man that feels that he's above the law, is above the people, and the question from well-meaning Lagosians. That was what we saw. That was what I saw yesterday, my own observation. He kept talking about the fact that, look, because he was mentioning names, that what was so special about Professor 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝗀𝗏. So he first started with the governor. In fact, what he did yesterday was to ridicule the governor. He was rolling out his CV, you know, almost comparing himself with the governor. The fact that when the governor was a special assistant, he was already in the state assembly, you know, trying to do some form of silent comparison. We are commentators, so we know these things. And look, when he was at NLDPC, he was already a speaker, and when he became a governor, he's still a speaker. You know, no reason was given other than the fact that the reasons why these commissioners, despite their performance and laudable achievements as commissioners, was that, look, it was political consideration. He said it severally. That, look, if not that they are successful as politicians, who are the so-called technocrats, for them to be nominated as commissioners, that it is because of the success of they as politicians that those guys are now nominated as commissioners. So again, from what I picked from the speaker, nobody's going to go to them to go and ask them why. Because he said that, look, you want to know why they brought them, come to the assembly. We're going to go and waste his time asking them that kind of question. I think from what he said yesterday, he has told us clearly that these commissioners were dropped basically on political considerations. It's about the interest of their party and party members who don't want these guys, not about the progress and the development of Lagos State. So again, it's unfortunate that, you know, this is the situation of governance in Lagos State. I see that, look, the political gladiators are now battling out for security. You know, the president has a bigger fish to fry. He doesn't have time, mostly I think, for Lagos State politics. Right. So you now have to speak popping shoulders with the governor. Unfortunately, Immediately the governor seems uninterested. You know, we don't really see the response. And the idea of, people in glass house do not throw stones. Most likely that statement from the speaker is directed at the governor. So are we saying the governor is in the glass house and is already throwing stones? Do they have anything on the governor that they are not telling us? Are they already investigating the governor? Are there issues already with the governor? Say there's a problem in Lagos State.
Page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. We have to move very quickly now. OAU bans hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. Well, basically, they have threatened...
Hugging,
yes, hugging as well among the opposite sex. So they've threatened suspension. And
in OAU, that is not hug themselves.
Yes. And they're going to rusticate students who hug, sit on each other's laps, who tattoo their bodies, boys who color their hair, girls who wear skimpy clothes, or those who deviate from the code of conduct that has been put forward in their revised student handbook. So hugging in public, kissing in public, wearing skimpy dresses, tattoos, colored hair for men, braiding of hair for men as well, can lead to you either being suspended or rusticated.
Well, I agree with, colored hair, skimpy dresses, probably kissing in public, sitting on each other's laps. Some of these students get too far, and all of that. But the idea of hugging, I think we need to look at that again. You expect students to, be in harmony with one another, and these are not teenagers. I think that a lot of them are adults already. But again, some of these things are discretionary.
Yeah.
I remember as a student union leader, I had questioned our school authorities at that time what is considered indecent dressing, a clear definition of what indecent dressing is. You understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes it's about discretion. So you now tell the security man to turn back the student who is indecently dressed, and the security man begins to now use his own discretion. So anybody, because again, you must now tell us what is skimpy. Is it above the knee, below the knee? Where exactly should the skirt be? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because if you are not careful, you now create a room for harassment of students on campus by people who are supposed to implement this policy. But again, I agree that we should have our students dress properly and behave properly on campus. But the argument for me, I think, has some questions.
Right. Well, for Guardian newspaper, we're going to have to just run through the remaining headlines. Tinubu gives ministers matching order to revive the economy. We spoke about that when we looked at the headlines on the front pages of the Punch. Now, for New Telegraph, very briefly, Tinubu bars officials with no direct participation from traveling to the United States. This is for the event, the United Nation General Assembly. Yes, during a mainland focus. We're going to talk about that. This was a decision to cut down the cost of government. If you have nothing to do there, you should not be there. Recruitment, reps threaten to stop waivers for MDAs. This is also a story about nipping nepotism in the board when it comes to working in ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, 𝗪𝗧 to contractors, return to site immediately, we will pay. Renew 48 billion naira oil contract for Tompolo, Niger Delta Groups tell federal government. Also here, PSC fires 4 DIGs, promote 4, says decision taken to uphold discipline and discourage status revival. And finally, 𝗪𝗧 court summons IGP, Kwara government over detained traditionalist. And finally, for the Nation newspaper, we have here, Tinubu targets economic revival, 40 million jobs in 3 years. Obaseki fires Shaibu's media aid as rift widens. I beg your pardon. This is in Edo State.
Politician.
Federal government stops frivolous official trip in cost-saving measure. And that is where we would have to draw the curtain for today's conversation on trends in the papers. But not to worry, we'll be back after this very short break. 8:40 a.m. We go to Mainland Focus. We pick 2 to 3 stories. We have conversations about it and then give you an opportunity to opine on the selected stories as well. My name is Sage Babalola. Fuhad, thank you for being on standby. Don't go anywhere. This is Mainland 98.3 FM.